Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video in this series where we build asteroids inside of Unity. In this video, we are going to be learning how to add shooting to the player and spawning the asteroids. So let's open up our player movement script where we are going to add the shooting. And once it's opened up inside of Unity, we can see right here inside of update, I'm going to do a quick if statement. If input.get key down, and then I'm going to do keycode dot space, but you can do whatever code you want for your shooting. And then I'm going to call a shoot method. Now let's go create that method by going a private void shoot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to instantiate our prefab at a certain position, but we need those prefabs. So I'm going to get a public game object, and I'm going to name this bullet prefab. I'm going to get a public transform. I'm going to name this place to shoot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to instantiate this. I'm going to instantiate the bullet prefab at the place to shoot. And for the rotation, I'm just going to put transform.up. And the reason we're getting an error here is because we don't need the .up. If we just delete that, then we get our errors go away. But now we need to add a force to our bullet. So let's make this into a variable. So I'm going to type variable, and I'm going to name it bullet, set is equal to this. Then I'm going to do bullet.getComponent rigid body 2D dot add force y, and then I'm going to get another bullet force variable. So up at the top, I'm going to do a public float and name it bullet force. This is going to be the force that the bullet shoots out of the player. So now, if we go back inside of Unity, if we go to the player, we can see that it's going to look for the bullet prefab, a place to shoot, and the bullet force. I'm going to set the bullet force to something like 2, and then I'm going to create the bullet by going a 2D object, sprite square. I'm going to name it bullet. If I zoom in, I'm going to scale it down, make it longer on the y-axis, and then if I just put it right in front of the player, that looks very big, so I'm going to scale it down just a little bit more. And then I'm going to drag it into my project folders to turn into a prefab. Then I'm going to delete it from the screen, and inside the player, I'm going to drag the bullet into the bullet prefab. As for the place to shoot, underneath the player, I'm going to create an empty game object and name it place to shoot. Then for the position, I'm going to put it half on the Y, and then just a little bit more. So I'm just going to move it up just right in front of the player. So now the player, for place to shoot, I'm going to drag this transform inside of there. And now, what I'm going to do is click to test that this is working. What should happen when we enter play mode is that if I push the space button, the bullet should shoot out. But there's no rigid body 2D attached to the bullet, so that's why we're getting an error. So let's go to the bullet, and we're going to add a rigid body 2D. We are going to change the gravity scale to 0, change interpolate to interpolate, and collision detection to continuous. I'm also going to add a box collider 2D, just so that we can get collisions with the asteroids. So now I'm going to click the play button, and then when we enter play mode, if I click that, you can see that these are spawning, but they're not going anywhere. The reason this is not working is because in our code, if we see this, I need to change this to transform.rotation and the place to shoot.position. Once I've done that, I can save it, go back inside of Unity, and then click the play button, because that just changed the variables for our instantiate. So now, if we go, you can see that the bullet is moving very slowly. So I'm going to change the bullet force to something like 200, and now it is moving much faster. But you can see that it is moving not in the right direction. And that's because we need to set the bullet rotation to be the rotation of, we are just putting a force on the, just straight up, but I'm going to multiply this by transform.up, just like we did for our add force. So that means we don't need to have the add force y. So now we are just creating a bullet, and we are putting a force on that bullet based on its current rotation. So I'm going to set bullet speed back to 200, and then I'm going to create another empty game object for our asteroid spawner. I'm going to name it the same thing, and then I'm going to reset the transform, add a new script, and name it the same, asteroid spawner. Now this asteroid spawner, this script should have a few things inside of it. If I open up inside of our coding editor, I'm going to delete these two methods, and then I'm going to need a public game object, and it's going to be called asteroid prefab. I'm going to get a public float, and it's going to be asteroid speed. I'm going to get a public float and name it trajectory variance. And then inside of the start, I'm going to do an invoke repeating, and we're going to repeat a method that we're going to create. Let's name it spawn. I'm going to name it spawn asteroid at a certain time. So I'm going to create another public float, and this is going to be asteroid spawn speed. So I'm going to put that as asteroid spawn speed and asteroid spawn speed. Now it will create another asteroid every single time, that this increases. So if we have it as 5, every 5 seconds, spawn asteroid will be called. We can just use the name of, and then we're going to have to generate the spawn asteroid method. So inside of this spawn asteroid method, we are going to spawn an asteroid, but we're going to spawn 2. So I'm going to do a for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 2, I plus plus. So now we're going to spawn 2 asteroids. I'm going to get a position, so it's going to do a vector2 position is equal to random.in. It's going to be random we're going to need to use unity engine.random, inside unit circle dot normalized times, and we're going to have to get another variable. So I'm going to create a public float, and this is going to be spawn distance. This is going to be how far away that the asteroids spawn from the player. I'm going to multiply this by spawn distance. This is going to be the position that the asteroid spawns in. So I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to name it asteroid, and it's going to be equal to an instantiated asteroid prefab at the position of this, and it's going to have a random rotation. This rotation we are going to make as a vector2, and I'm going to name it rotation is equal to a random dot range, and we're going to have to add Unity Engine in front of this. Random dot range between the negative trajectory variance and the positive trajectory variance. And instead of a vector2, we're just going to make this a float. And then we're going to create a quaternion, which is a rotation, and I'm going to name this rotation, which is just short for rotation, and it's going to be a quaternion dot angle axis between the angle and an axis. The angle is just going to be rotation, and then the axis is just going to be vector3.forward. Now we're going to add it on the rotation. And now we have this asteroid, we're going to have to add a little force to it. So we're going to get asteroid.getComponent rigid body 2D dot add force, and we're going to get we'll have another variable, so I'm going to just do asteroid speed times our rotation times our negative position. And the reason we are getting an error here is because we have to add parentheses in between here so that this gets done first and then asteroid speed is multiplied by it. So now it's going to spawn the asteroid. It's going to spawn the asteroid and put it in a force that goes toward the middle of the screen. So now if we go into here, for this asteroid spawner, it's going to look for an asteroid prefab, a speed, trajectory variance, spawn speed, and a spawn distance. For the speed, I'm going to put as 3. The trajectory variance, I'm going to put as 15. The spawn speed, I'm going to put as 1 just for debugging purposes. And the spawn distance, I'm going to put as 10. And as for the prefab, I'm just going to right now create a 2D sprite square and name it asteroid. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit. I'm going to bring it into here to create a prefab. And then for asteroid spawner, I'm going to drag in the prefab for the prefab slot. So now if I click the play button, I'm going to go into the scene view, and you can see here that we are getting a null reference exception or a missing component exception because we have to add a rigid body 2D to this asteroid. I'm going to change the gravity scale to 0, interpolate to interpolate, and collision detection to continuous. I'm also going to add a box collider to it as well. So now if we go click play again and then go into the scene view, we should be able to see our asteroids spawning and moving towards the player. You can see that they are. They are spawning outside the screen, and they are all moving towards the center, but I would say that they are moving pretty slow. You can also see that I can shoot them with our little bullets, but they don't do anything right now. And that is what we are going to do in next week's video. So make sure to stay tuned to figure out how to add collision between the bullets and the asteroids. With that, this Unity tutorial is finished. If you like this tutorial, please give our channel a like and a subscribe, because it really helps out a ton. Thank you!